Let's open our Bibles to Psalm 61. That's where we have been, and I thank you for joining me there. If you have a Bible, we're going to look at one phrase today. We're not even going to get through a whole verse, but this is a phrase that to me is worth us kind of laying the groundwork for and then you thinking about through the rest of the day. So David is in a place of being overwhelmed. He's physically distant from his home. He's displaced. His heart is overwhelmed. So he says in verse 1, "Hear my cry, O God, attend unto my prayer. From the end of the earth will I cry unto thee." That's what we studied yesterday. When my heart is overwhelmed. We studied the idea of being overwhelmed. Well, what does David pray when he's overwhelmed? He says, and this is the next phrase I want to focus on for the next few minutes, "Lead me to the rock that is higher than I." Lead me to the rock that is higher than I. Now, would you just think about this phrase with me? Think about being overwhelmed, being displaced, being immersed in the feeling of lostness and floundering emotionally and psychologically and spiritually, and not knowing where to land or how to find your way or how to get out of that feeling of being overwhelmed or the circumstances that are truly, factually, practically overwhelming. What does a God follower do in these moments? Well, we said yesterday that God follower cries out. We talked about the power of crying out audibly with your voice to God. And then what is the prayer? The prayer is first, and if this were an outline, I'd probably outline it somehow this way. Point one, lead me. Lead me. So there's an admission here that I can't find my way. I don't want to try to find my way. I don't trust myself to get out of this. I don't trust my own abilities, my own insight. I don't know where I am, therefore I don't know where I'm going. And there's humility here. There's surrender and a yielding and just a deference here that's founded in whether it's a forced humility or a voluntary humility. And what I mean by that is whether the circumstances have driven David to this feeling and this sense of, I don't know how to get out of this, or whether it's voluntary. And let me comment on that. There have been times in my life where I had an artificial sense of confidence and direction. I know what I'm doing. And I say artificial because that's never substantive. It's always, it can be presumptuous and proud. And we need to voluntarily go here. We need to voluntarily get to this place in every decision of life of voluntarily, humbly saying, Lord, lead me. I don't know what I'm doing. Whether you're purchasing a car, purchasing a home, looking for a job, entering into a dating relationship, relocating your family, or just looking for direction for today, we need to voluntarily be in this place of, Lord, lead me. Okay, you are higher, more knowledgeable, more gracious and loving and informed than I can ever be. Your wisdom is higher than me. Your knowledge is higher than me. Your ways are better than mine. So God, you lead me in a voluntary way. But let me say this, there are times for our own good that God puts us here involuntarily, okay? In other words, He lets us become overwhelmed so that we have no other alternatives or options but to say, Lord, help me, I'm overwhelmed, I need you to lead me. And it's in those moments where that involuntary cry teaches us that we are not all that we think we are and that God is the rock that is higher than us. So go there voluntarily, but anticipate in life that for our own good, in love, God's going to put us there, sometimes involuntarily, because then we find out when we're overwhelmed, He isn't. When we're weak, He is strong. And when we have nowhere to turn, He is always there, and He should become that place that we always turn voluntarily. I guess I could say it this way. It's in the involuntary places that I find out that God is the one I should turn to always voluntarily. So David is crying out, Lord, lead me. The word lead is direct me, guide me, take me there, okay? Govern me, Put me on the path you want me on. So it's an involuntary, humble cry, admitting a need for direction. But then it's a very specific thing. God, I want to be on your path. I want to be where you want me to be. I want to follow you. It's the cry of a follower, okay? So let me ask you this. Are you asking God to follow you? Or are you crying out to God, God, I want to follow you? Who's following who in the relationship? Okay. So often as believers, our prayers reflect more of a heart of God. You get behind me and follow me. Like here's my script, Lord, and I want you to get on it. But the cry of Scripture is, Lord, I want to follow you. Okay. A God follower is not trying to get God to align with his script. He's trying to align with God's script. And that's built in here. Lord, lead me, lead me. Can you genuinely pray, Lord, lead me? Well, point two would be where? Point one would be lead me, guide me, direct me. I need your leadership. But where do we want God to lead us? To the rock. Okay, let's think about that. To the rock. So David is not saying, Lord, lead me back to familiarity. He's not saying, Lord, lead me back home. He's not saying, Lord, lead me back to my throne. Lord, lead me back to the place that I want to be. Okay, this is, I think, beautiful and profound. He could have prayed a lot of things. Lord, lead me here. Lord, make my way happen. Again, God, follow my ideas. What David says is, Lord, lead me to the rock, which is a geographical and a physical, figurative metaphor. If you ever go to the Holy Land, you just can't get away from this image that it's a very rocky land, okay? It's a very mountainous land, and everywhere there are rocks and rocky structures. So Jerusalem is built on rocky hills. And everywhere there are rock overhangs and high rock peaks. And the highest points would have been the places of the safest defense. The most defensible cities were built up on peaks with vantage points that had great distances in view and were strong fortress-like settings. In the sense of a storm, if you were David, you would have been trying to find an elevated place, maybe under a rock, in a cave that was structurally sound, that was not able to be flooded, but that had some water as well, maybe some springs within reach. And these types of places are throughout this rocky terrain wilderness. So it's a fertile land in the plains, and by the Mediterranean plains and the Jordan plain, it's fertile. It's rough, mountainous through the spine center of the country. On the eastern edge, it's wilderness. It's dry, sandy, rocky terrain. On the western slopes and in those regions of hills, it's still very fertile, even though it's rocky and mountainous. So David is in some mountainous, probably region where he is thinking about his own safety. And then the spiritual, figurative idea is, God, take me in this overwhelmed place and moment of my life. Lead me to the safety of your presence and your spiritual fortress. So he realizes he's vulnerable and he's liable to make a wrong decision and do the wrong thing. And he's not simply praying for physical safety, he's praying for spiritual safety. Lord, lead me to you. I want your leadership to bring me to you. So what does David need? He needs leadership. Where does David need to be? In a spiritually safe place. And why does he need to be there? That's point 3. And that is to the rock that is higher than I. Again, humility. Again, wisdom. David says, there's a higher place. I could take the low road of my own self-will. I could make mistakes. I could make bad decisions. I could do the wrong thing. But God, you take me to the place that's higher. better, stronger, wiser, smarter, okay? And I would simply implore you, friend, to understand that when it's your way versus God's way, when you're dealing with overwhelmed circumstances or difficult decisions or moments or a season like COVID, and you're looking at your way through the woods versus God's way through the woods that you can't really see, carving your own path, finding your own solutions versus humbly crying out and looking up for leadership and direction and saying, God, you're the rock, you're safe, you're the spiritual safe place. Why? Because you're higher than me. Your ways are not my ways. Your understanding is stronger. Your wisdom is better. Your heart is gooder, if I can say that. You're more loving than I am. You're more insightful than I am. So God, I want to take the higher road through this place in life. David realizes he could do a hard time in life the wrong way. He could navigate an overwhelmed place the wrong way. And so what he's saying is, God, I want to navigate the overwhelmed season the right way, so lead me and guide me and take me to the rock. Take me to the wise path. So friend, let me encourage you. Don't default to your way through the hard places, okay? Don't default to the painkillers. Don't default to your escape mechanisms or to the trap doors that seem to get you out quicker, okay? Often in our lives, we make decisions that actually make our hard places worse, our hard places harder, our overwhelmed places more overwhelmed. Run to the rock that is higher than you and ask God to lead you, okay, to the place that he wants you to be. David navigated very difficult places in his life by running to God, crying out to God, and asking for leadership. You, as a child of God, have access to that same direction, that same wisdom, and I hope you'll take him up on his wisdom today. When my heart is overwhelmed, lead me to the rock that is higher than I. And that is, in reality, more than enough for today. It's enough for a lifetime.